بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون. كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون. ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم سبعا شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وهاجا وأنزلنا من المعصرات ماء ثجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا. إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا. إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا حميما وغساقا جزاء وفاقا. إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا. إن للمتقين مفازا حدائق وأعنابا وكواعب أترابا وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا. رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا. يوم يقوم الروح صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن وقال ذلك نشطا والسابحات سبحا السابقات سبقا المدبرات أمرا يوم ترجف الراجفة تتبعها الرادفة قلوب يومئذ واجفة أبصارها خاشعة يقولون أئنا لمردودون في الحافرة فإذا كنا عظاما نخرة قالوا تلك إذا كرة خاسرة فإنما هي زجرة واحدة فإذا هم بالساهرة. هل أتاك حديث موسى إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقل هل.
Today's khutbah is about one or fragments of one subject in the Quran. It's a very heavy subject. I'd like to call it the subject of anger and losing one's temper. And this is something that is often, like many other subjects in Allah's book, oversimplified. And our deen oversimplified. Of course, we all know that anger is not a good thing, and we're not supposed to be in a state of anger. But we're going to try to dig deeper a little bit into some of the aspects of anger that Allah talks about and the way that He talks about them. And I'd like to start with a kind of an unusual place, acknowledgement, meaning Allah Azza wa Jal acknowledges that it's okay to be angry at certain occasions. When is it okay for a believer, a slave of Allah, to be angry? Because at the end of the day, anger is only truly justified for Allah Azza wa Jal. As a matter of fact, the word ghadab in the Quran pretty much entirely is used only for Allah. People who drew upon themselves the anger of Allah, the ghadab of Allah. غَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ فَبَاءُوا بِغَضَبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. This expression is continuously used exclusively for Allah. The only time outside of the usage for Allah you find the word ghadab used is twice, and that's for Musa alayhi salam. غَضْبَانَ أَسِفًا is occurring twice in the Quran. But before we go to ghadab, which is a common Arabic word for anger, we'll dig into that a little bit more. I want to start with something else. Just a couple of words of vocabulary so they stay in your mind. Even though the Quran uses multiple words for anger, it uses ghayz, it uses ghadab, it uses sakhat, it uses hard, there's multiple words used. I want to start with ghayz, which is probably the most important to understand, because it's used even for believers, and it's also used for disbelievers. It's also used for people who don't like Muslims. Like mutu bi ghayzikum, inna Allaha alimun bi dhati sudur. You want to have, abdu alaykum al-anamina min al-ghayz. They bite at their fingers at how angry they are at you, how much they hate you, some people who hate Muslims. And Allah says you can die that way. Die in your anger. Allah knows what you have in your hearts. Inna Allaha alimun bi dhati sudur. But what does this word ghayz actually signify? This is what I wanted to start with. Ghayz actually is not to let anger be shown. Ghayz in Arabic is actually something, it's used, for example, halimatun muqtada. They used to look at this big stone pot that's cooking something, and they would call it halimatun muqtada, which means calm yet angry. What that means is if you look at the pot, it's not moving, it's still. It's calm, it's settled. But if you go touch it, you burn your hand. Right? So you don't really know what's going on when you look at it, but if you take a closer look, or if you looked inside, you'd see something boiling inside. Right? And that's the state of people sometimes. On the outside, they look totally calm. Like they'll even smile at you and say, "Assalamu alaikum, how are you?" etc. And inside, they hate your guts. They can't stand you. Right? And they have a lot of rage inside of them. But it's not even about a hypocritical attitude. It could even be that somebody's carrying about their life very normally. There's they're doing groceries, they're going to work, they're meeting with friends, everything seems normal, but inside there's some crazy stuff going on, and there's an overwhelming amount of rage, and nobody can tell from the outside that this storm is brewing inside this person. Nowadays we see crazy things in the news, right? He was such a normal guy. I don't know what happened. I don't know why he picked up a machine gun and, went crazy in the movie theater or went crazy in the college campus or whatever else. But it's not even to the extreme where you end up going on a killing rampage. Even inside of your family, sometimes there's somebody who all of a sudden erupts. And you're like, wait, you were never like that. What happened to you? What bug bit you today? Well, you didn't see it because it was brewing inside for many, many, many years sometimes. And they were holding it in and holding it in and holding it in, and there was no way to let it out, and eventually it just comes out, and it comes out far too much. By the way, when it does come out, then it's ghadab. When it does release, that's ghadab. If you're able to hold it in and contain it, and it's boiling on the inside, but nobody knows on the outside, that is still ghayth. And I want to start off with, for the most part, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they withstood a lot. They were insulted publicly. Their messenger, who they loved more than their own selves, was insulted in front of them. He was cursed. He was spit at. He was pushed away. He was almost stoned to death. He was expelled from his home. They were taken out of their homes. Can you imagine the anger you would have if somebody was taking you out of your home? If somebody was taking me and my family and my kids out of my home and kicking them out and pushing them away and threatening them and then moving in like it's theirs? Can you imagine that kind of anger? Can you imagine the anger against those who tried to kill you? And have made fun of you and even tried to kill you. You've gone to war with them multiple times. Those are the people that the Prophet ﷺ taught the Sahaba to engage even them with the ethics of war. In other words, you don't go overboard in your anger. You deal with them patiently. And that ghayz of the companions was put to the test. I mean, they got to release some of it at Badr. There's some of it released at Uhud, some of it released at Ahzab. But by the time we get to Hudaybiyah and the treaty that the companions reached, how frustrated were they? How angry were the companions that now they've made it all the way? They didn't come with weapons. They come all the way to Mecca. They reach this unmanned place, Hudaybiyah, where human beings aren't even supposed to be there. It's an abandoned field, and the way to get there is through burning rocks. Like, it's not even a path you travel for people. Even animals don't go on that path. And that's the path they took to get there because they were afraid of getting attacked. And Meccans were actually on the attack on the way that the Muslims were going to Hajj. And this is in itself enraging because for the people of Mecca, they had one policy. If somebody comes to Hajj, we don't attack them. Well, because even the mushrik, the idol-worshipping tribes, they used to do Hajj too. They used to come for pilgrimage also. But the Meccans had mutual respect from everybody because they're not going to attack somebody who comes for the purpose of worship. But they even then broke their own constitution and tried to attack. They sent, actually, back then, Khalid ibn Walid, who wasn't Muslim yet, radiallahu anhu. They sent a battalion with him to try to attack the Muslims on their way to Hudaybiyah, on their way to Hajj. So they had to take another route, and literally, some narrations describe, as they're making their way to Hudaybiyah, they were bleeding because the jagged rocks and the thorns on the path, because even animals don't go there, were cutting their legs and their shins as they were going. And the shoes were melting off from the burning rock, and people's feet were burning as they were going on this path to get to Hudaybiyah. They didn't get there easily. And when they get there, and they bring all of their animals there for slaughter, then they find out after much back and forth that they can't do Hajj. They have to go back. And not only do they have to go back, they have to slaughter the animal, and they have to give the meat of that animal to the people of Mecca. Because that's where the meat is supposed to go. So those people who kept us from doing Hajj are going to eat our animals. That's the first udhiyah. That's the Eid al-Adha, the first one. We're very happy when the animal is slaughtered. They were not happy when the animal was slaughtered. And this was ghayth. So when the Prophet ﷺ told them to shave their heads, take their ihram off, head back, actually that ghayth turned into ghadab. It came out. And for the first time, the entirety of the companions, the people of Sami'na wa Ata'na, we hear and we obey. This is how Quran describes these people. We hear and we obey. The Prophet ﷺ tells all of them to listen. None of them listen. None of them listen. To the point where even Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, who's supposed to be the symbol of the obedience and loyalty to the Prophet ﷺ, hears Umar bin al-Khattab. Umar got up and spoke out. And he lashed out. Actually, he lashed out at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He got loud in front of everybody. And even said, "Alasna ala al-haq." Aren't we following the right religion? Wait, what do you mean? And he even questioned the Prophet, "Didn't you see a dream we're coming here?" And the Prophet ﷺ said, "I never said this year." But then he could have just said, "Well, if it's not this year, what are we doing here this year?" And he got so mad, he took those, and by the way, when he said these questions, even Abu Bakr can hear him. But usually when Umar bin al-Khattab used to get angry, who used to calm him down? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. But even Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said nothing. He said nothing. Then he went to Abu Bakr and repeated the same questions, and Abu Bakr said, "You better watch it." Then he put him on, and you calmed him down, you know? But this is the level to, and by the way, all of this happened, you have to bear in mind that when somebody raises their voice to the Prophet ﷺ, or when people disobey the messengers in the Quran, that's not a small thing, is it? Disobeying messengers. And yet no ayat of the Quran came to reprimand those companions for doing what they did. As a matter of fact, the Quran that came down to comment on what happened, all of it, it actually includes some of the greatest praises of those companions ever. Ever. Actually compares them to a growing, maturing crop, you know, at the end of Surah Al-Fath, you know. And it's an incredible, incredible image. Why? Why though? They were angry. Allah should have said, "You shouldn't have gotten angry. You should have obeyed the Prophet ﷺ." Remember in the Battle of Uhud, when some of the companions decided to come down from the mount and didn't obey the Prophet ﷺ, then ayat came. حتى إذا فشلتم وتنازعتم في الأمر وعصيتم من بعد ما أراكم ما تحبون منكم من يريد الدنيا ومنكم من يريد الآخرة. Ayat came to criticize them. But here, all of them disobeyed. And no criticism. This is Allah's way of telling us there are some times where anger can become overwhelming and it's justified. Even at that stage. Imagine the woman in Surah Al-Mujadila, the opening of Surah Al-Mujadila, that came to the Prophet ﷺ, started raising her voice. "My husband just told me that I'm like his mother to him now. He won't be with me anymore." This was the jahil way, the ignorant way of giving a divorce to your wife. It wasn't really a divorce, but the guy got angry at his wife and said, "From today on, you're like my mom. That's what I'm going to call you. That just means we're done. Because I can't think of you anymore. That would be as disgusting to me as thinking about my own mother." It was a really nasty thing to say. So they did that. He did zihar to her. And she came complaining to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet didn't know what to tell her, ﷺ. He didn't have revelation to answer that question. So he remained silent. He says, "I don't know what to tell you." And she gets angrier and angrier. She gets louder and louder. And then Quran comes, Surah Al-Mujadila comes, and Allah Azza wa Jalla says, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. Allah heard the call of the one complaining about her spouse that came to you, and she's complaining to Allah, and Allah is listening all along to both of your dialogue. وَاللَّهُ يَسْمَعُ تَحَاوُرَكُمَا. Allah is listening to the dialogue happening between both of you. But even then, He doesn't say, لَا تَرْفَعُوا أَصْوَاتَكُمْ فَوْقَ صَوْتِ النَّبِيِّ. He doesn't say, "You better be quiet. You better just listen. You better recognize that's the messenger of Allah." No, at that moment, that anger was justified. That was okay. Allah actually took her side. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. When someone's in a desperate situation and their anger gets the best of them, Allah is on their side. That when somebody's mazloom, when somebody's been wronged, those Sahaba were wronged for many, 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 many years. It just came out. It came out in ways that they never imagined they would ever do. That's okay. As a matter of fact, if it hadn't been anybody else, it would have been a riot at Hudaybiyah. Forget it, we're going to fight. We don't care. The fact that they just didn't obey or didn't take their ihram off at first is pretty amazing. And the Prophet ﷺ doesn't have a giant microphone. There are no water hoses with like police to calm the crowd down. A crowd of 1,800 to 2,000, and they're calmly disobeying. Calmly, just expressing their anger. And one or two of them speak out. That's incredible. That's why Allah actually praises it. Allah does not say you can't be angry. But Allah praises those companions for the way they expressed their anger. It's an incredible moment in our history. It's something really profound to learn from. Allah does not say you shouldn't get angry. Of course you're going to get angry. When injustice happens, you and I become angry. We become frustrated. But what makes them those mature crop is how they dealt with that anger. Even if for a moment they lost it, they regained themselves. They regained their composure. So you've got incident after incident, and the final angry incident, just because this first part of this khutbah, I really wanted to highlight, it's okay to be angry sometimes. That's okay. You're not a terrible human being if you got angry in certain situations. And this third case I want to share with you is probably the most extreme case in the story of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's when his own wife was accused of wrongdoing. And the entire city of Medina, وَالنَّاسُ يُفِيضُونَ فِي قَوْلِ أَصْحَابِ الْإِفْكِ, she herself says, everybody was talking about the scandal against her. But that didn't bother her as much, even though she was really sick and crying and sad. Sadness is what got to her. She cried so much, and then buka'a faliqun kabadi. My parents thought my liver's going to tear open because I'm crying for 2 straight days. The Prophet ﷺ came over to her, sat next to her, and he said something to her. He said to her, in kunti almamti bi dhanbi. If you've done any mistake, if you even made a little bit of a mistake, fastaghfirillah wa tubi ilayhi. Just make tawbah, do istighfar, make tawbah to Allah. If you're innocent, Allah will prove you're innocent. But if you've made a mistake, Allah will prove that you're innocent. Or Allah, you just ask Allah for forgiveness. So the Prophet basically ﷺ said 2 things to his wife. If you did it, repent. And if you didn't, Allah will prove that you're innocent. That's what he said. But the fact that it's her husband saying if, anybody else saying if you did it, if you didn't do it, when your own husband says, what you mean if? Are you doubting me? And she says, قَلَصَ ضَمْعِي. She says, my tears dried up. Don't become the person who's angry out of jealousy. And if you have people angry at you out of jealousy, or whatever their motives are, just ask Allah's protection. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us the ability to control our anger, to not allow that lump of coal to burn the good inside of our hearts. May Allah Azza wa Jal forgive the anger that we have demonstrated in our past. And may Allah Azza wa Jal also make us forgiving to those who do become angry for justified reasons. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن الحكيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم وخاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يقول الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. عباد الله رحمكم الله اتقوا الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. أقم الصلاة إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. Start. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي من قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أهدت فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مقيم مطاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين وما هو على الغيب بضنين وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله رب العالمين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طهاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بتقواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
إلى أن تزكى وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى فأراه الآية الكبرى فكذب وعصى ثم أدبر يسعى فحشر فنادى فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى فأخذه الله نكال الآخرة والأولى إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها رفع سمكها فسواها وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها والجبال أرساها متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها فيم أنت من